The indicator lights on the control panel switched from green to yellow, marking an unclassified target entering the scan sector. The radar screen began to flash repeatedly. Return echoes appeared as blurred, unstable patches. The operator leaned close to the screen, rechecking speed and heading. A cluster of low-level objects was approaching on a 236-degree bearing. Speed, approximately 150 kilometers per hour. Altitude, 80 to 110 meters. RCS, highly variable, unstable, poor returns. The classification algorithm displayed large bird cluster over low profile, UAV threat level low. Thus, no alert was triggered, no escalation of the alarm state. But what the screen showed were not birds. They were a swarm of decoy UAVs that Ukraine had dispatched, compact UJ-22 drones, modified from commercial platforms. They were designed to mimic the flight characteristics and radar signature of a wave of cruise missiles. Each drone was a provocative decoy carrying 4 simultaneous tasks: pull Russian air defense focus off axis, force Panzer, Tor, and S-400 units to activate radars, exposing their locations. Overload classification algorithms disrupt the intercept chain. Simultaneously send back a live map of actual air defense coverage to the Ukrainian 305 when they were closing on the real target, the electro-diesel plant at 17-kilometer distance. They emitted wide-band jamming pulses, causing the Podlet K1 and Panzer fire control radars to display scattered echoes, as if a formation of cruise missiles were inbound. Immediately, the Panzer S-1 cluster at Kherson went to combat mode. The 1RS-2E fire control radar began tracking the strongest return within the decoy swarm. 1 minute later, 257 E-6 missiles left their rails, enabling command guidance seekers, but they lost track of their target shortly after launch. The continuous tracking algorithm slid off because the decoy UAV's RCS fluctuated in rhythm by design, combined with their zigzag flight path, forcing the tracking radar to update steering angles constantly. Each heading change skewed the illumination beam, so the tracking system no longer had a stable return to maintain an engagement vector. At 36 minutes and 30 seconds, both interceptors detonated prematurely in the air. No effect. An officer on watch blurted out, "Can't lock, decoys." No one would confirm. While Russian radars still wrestled with the expanding decoy swarm radiating east of Kherson, 2 TEL launchers hidden under the forest canopy 40 kilometers apart in Sumy Oblast simultaneously fired 4 Neptune cruise missiles. Each warhead carried up to 200 kilograms of semi-armor-piercing explosive, designed not to demolish a whole building, but to perforate, burn from within, and render an industrial system uncontrollable. Each launcher completed its firing sequence in under 10 seconds. Neptune 01 and 02 left Launcher 1, separated by 0.8 seconds. Neptune 03 and 04 were launched 1 minute 30 seconds later from Launcher 2 on a 41-degree offset axis. Their target was the electro-diesel manufacturing plant, Kherson, Bryansk Oblast. Electro-diesel is a critical military-industrial node producing components for more than 20 Russian defense enterprises, including cruise missile systems, Nebo-M radars, and Orlan 30 UAVs, plus control electronics, radar subsystems, and missile components. Internal technical reports from 2022 recorded that 70% of mid-tier Russian connectors, from Bars 1 communications to thermal sighting modules, were manufactured at electro-diesel. Destroy the right technical nodes, and the entire assembly line can be disabled for months, even years. The 4 missiles divided into 2 independent attack groups, approaching the plant from 2 cross-flank directions to create intersecting attack angles, beyond the simultaneous reaction capability of any single Panzer or Tor battery. The entire flight path had been pre-programmed using the real air defense footprint that the decoy swarm had just forced Russia's radars to reveal within the previous 4 minutes. What looked like dispersed interference was in fact an active reconnaissance phase, determining the orientation and reflectivity characteristics of each air defense node. It allowed the Ukrainian targeting team to compute the gaps between radar cover layers where Neptune would glide in unseen. All 4 missiles flew close to the ground, holding altitudes between 35 meters and 42 meters, entirely beneath Russia's radar horizon. Cruise speed for each missile remained between 875 to 890 kilometers per hour, faster than a helicopter, slower than a fighter, but leaving less than 45 seconds for a reaction if detected at 10 to 15 kilometers. The entire trajectory was guided by a suite of asymmetric technologies, TERCOM, terrain-matching navigation against a digital map to keep the route precise, low-resolution infrared satellite imagery, identifying targets by thermal contrast, integrated thermal camera dcsync algorithms using micro-image matching to fix strike points. When Russian air defenses were still locked onto the decoy swarm, these 4 missiles crossed the border from the southwest, where no Russian AD unit was actively tracking. At 3:06, all 4 Neptune entered the radar dead zone. They hugged the Bryansk forested terrain under 42 meters. Neptune was now less than 30 kilometers from the electrodetal plant. At near 900 kilometers per hour cruise speed, less than 2 minutes remained before impact. At 6 minutes and 14 seconds, the 1 RS-2E fire control radar of a Panzer recorded the first of radar pinging. The watch crew could not identify it, but instinct whispered, "Something is coming." Only 4 seconds later, Tor M2 in the industrial southern defense cluster raised a level 1 warning. The active phased array radar spun quickly toward the west, range to target 23 kilometers, time remaining under 60 seconds. But the control team was still recovering systems after the decoy launch. Power panels had just been rebooted. The battery crew was waiting for valid engagement data. Having been tricked once, Russian air defense entered an overcautious posture. No one dared classify the contact as a real missile or a residual scatter from the remaining decoys. At 6 minutes and 35 seconds, the entire electrodetal air defense cluster entered a semi-alarm state. Internal alerts lit up, but no one had enough certainty to act. Afraid of another false intercept, they chose to wait for confirmation, a decision that would be costly. At 6 minutes and 48 seconds. With Neptune 01 less than 2,500 meters from the target, the watch officers in Kherson finally grasped the reality. The weak radar blip was not interference, not birds, not a decoy swarm. It was a cruise missile closing at nearly 250 meters per second, due to strike in under 10 seconds. The air defense complex descended into chaos. The classification, verification, authorization chain could not complete in time. "Automatic! Engage point defense!" the commander ordered. Urgent. A battery of 2 A-38 M30mm close-in guns from the Panzer opened fire. Rounds were swept along predicted lead lines, but the distance was minimal. Time was insufficient. No gun position achieved an ideal firing angle. As the guns began to fire, Neptune 01 entered terminal dive. Approach angle 17 degrees. Altitude 28 meters. Speed 245 meters per second. The missile had locked onto warehouse D4, storing thousands of connector batches for Russian military gear at 7 minutes and 6 seconds. The 150-kilogram semi-armor piercing warhead punched through the thin corrugated roof right at the center of D4. The detonation occurred inside a closed volume. No vents, no windows, no pressure relief. Pressure in the warehouse spiked from 1 atmosphere to 13 atmosphere within 0.2 seconds. Shockwaves hammered all 4 walls and reflected back to the center. Temperatures shot to 1,700 degrees Celsius. 5,000 connector batches, enough to outfit 40 Nebo-M radar sets or 60 Orlan UAVs, were reduced to ash in under 2 seconds.